The great doors of the Galactic Council Hall opened with a deep metallic groan. Guards stood on both sides, stiff and silent. Every head turned. Every breath stopped. And then, she walked in. The alien princess, daughter of the fallen Zevan Empire, was not like the others. Her skin shimmered with silver-blue light under the palace glow. Her eyes, cold and unreadable, looked straight ahead. She wore a cloak that dragged behind her like liquid fire, and her hands were bound in golden cuffs, not to keep her trapped, but to remind everyone who she used to be. A warning. They called her cursed, dangerous, touched by a forbidden's power. Some whispered that anyone who got too close would vanish in their sleep. Others believed her to be a living weapon, born during a solar storm, trained in shadows. But in truth, no one really knew her as she stepped into the center of the circular chamber. One by one, the council members backed away. Their robes rustled. Their chairs squeaked. Even the high-ranking generals of 3 different species lowered their eyes and put distance between themselves and her. No one wanted to stand near the last daughter of Ziva, except one. He didn't wear a royal robe or command a fleet. He was just a human. Simple black boots, dust-covered coat, a small device on his wrist blinking softly. He looked out of place, like he'd taken a wrong turn in a palace made for gods. And yet, he didn't move. He stood right where the princess was walking. His arms were crossed, expression unreadable. His eyes never left hers. The guards noticed first. One of them whispered, "Move, human. That's the cursed one." But he didn't. The princess stopped, only steps away from him. She tilted her head slightly, as if curious. No fear in her eyes, no rage either. Just a pause, like she was waiting to see what he would do next. Human finally spoke. "You're shorter than I expected." The hall gasped. One alien minister dropped his glass. Another turned away, expecting the human to be torn apart on the spot. But the princess only blinked. "No one talks to me like that," she said, voice soft but strong. "Then maybe that's the problem," the human replied. A flicker of something crossed her face. Not anger, not pride. Confusion maybe. Curiosity. She took a step closer. "Who are you?" she asked. He smiled. Not a fake smile. Not nervous. "Just honest. Name's Ryan. They told me you needed a guard. Everyone else ran, so here I am." "You're not afraid?" "Of me?" she asked. His voice was calm. "I've seen things that scare me. You're not one of them." A murmur rippled through the council. They couldn't understand how he was still standing. Some thought he was insane. Others began whispering about a human trick. But the princess, she looked at Ryan like she was seeing sunlight for the first time. "Why did you volunteer?" she asked. He shrugged. "Because everyone else backed away." She stared at him for a long moment, her hands still bound, her heart still cold. But something small, cracked in her silence. "I could kill you right now," she whispered. He stepped even closer. "Then I'd die doing the one thing no one else dared. Standing beside you." Silence fell again. This time, heavy, powerful. The guards tightened their grips. The ministers watched through half-lowered visors. Some expected blood. Others expected an explosion. But nothing came. The princess turned away from Ryan and walked to her place in the center of the room. He followed her, one step behind, without fear. No one else dared come close. The palace whispers hadn't stopped since that day. Everyone talked about the human who didn't step back, who stood in front of the cursed princess as if she were a common girl, not a walking disaster. They said he was either insane or suicidal. Maybe both, but Princess Viral didn't care about their words. What she couldn't stop thinking about was his eyes, calm, steady, and unshaken, even when her shadow fell over him like a warning. Now inside her private chamber, she sat. In silence. It had been days since Ryan was assigned as her personal guard. He didn't ask questions. He didn't follow the fearful stares. He simply walked behind her, guarded her during the council debates, and once even made her laugh. Just once, and that scared her more than any assassin. He was the only creature in the galaxy who looked at her and didn't see a monster. And that was dangerous, because she was one. The scars on her back, the seal on her wrists, the power burning just beneath her skin, all reminders of what she had done. And what she still could do. She rose from her seat, barefoot on the cold metal floor. Her golden cuffs hummed faintly. Her eyes narrowed. If he truly didn't fear her, then it was time to test that. Ryan stood outside her door, arms folded, watching the corridor as if he was guarding a queen. Not a ticking bomb. The door opened behind him. She didn't speak. He turned and stopped. She wasn't wearing royal silks today. No guards, no crown, no cold expression. Just a black training robe, simple, silent. And in her hand, a blade. It was long, ancient, curved at the end, humming with faint violet light. Zevan steel, illegal in most systems. Forged to cut through armor and thought alike. Ryan's eyes moved to the blade, then back to her face. That for me? He asked. Only if you move, she replied. He didn't. She stepped forward. Why don't you flinch? He smiled. Maybe I trust you. She raised the blade. Then you're a fool, she said. She slashed, not to kill, but fast enough to scare. The edge of the blade passed within a hair's width of his throat. He didn't blink, didn't step back, didn't even raise a hand. The blade came to rest against his chest, just above his heart. And still, he stood there, breathing slow and even. You really don't fear me, she whispered. No, he said, looking down at the blade. I think you want someone to challenge you, not run from you. Her hand trembled slightly. No one had ever called her out like that. No one had dared to guess what was behind her rage. Behind the mask she wore every day. People don't challenge weapons, she said. They should, he replied. Or else they rust. That made her pause. For the first time in years, she lowered her weapon, not because she lost interest, because she saw something in him she didn't understand. He wasn't drawn to her power. He wasn't playing a game. He wasn't even trying to save her. He was just there, unmoved, real. And that terrified her more than any assassin's knife. Later that evening, she sat on the edge of the observatory deck, staring at the stars through the glass ceiling. Ryan leaned against the wall nearby, arms folded again. You're quiet, he said. She didn't answer right away. Then she asked, Do you believe in cursed blood? No, he said, without thinking. Why not? Because blood can't curse you, he said. But people can, by how they treat you. Her lips pressed together. You don't even know what I did, she whispered. I don't care what they say you did, he replied. I care what you do now. She looked at him, eyes full of centuries of silence. And for a moment, she imagined something impossible, a life not filled with chains, but with choice. The next morning, she stood in the training arena alone, dressed in her full armor, and next to her, two blades. One for her. One for him. When he arrived, she tossed it toward him without a word. He caught it easily. What's this? He asked. She looked him in the eye. If you won't fear me, she said, then fight me. And this time, her smile wasn't cold. It was real. The duel had ended hours ago. No winner, no blood, just silence. Varel had thrown every move she knew. Lightning-fast strikes that could shatter metal, feints designed to confuse even veteran soldiers. But the human Ryan never struck back. He blocked, dodged, smiled. And when she grew tired, he offered her water. It wasn't a fight. It was trust being tested. Again and again. And now, back in the grand hall, she stood before the council. Dressed in ceremonial silver robes, her golden cuffs polished, her hair braided in long loops that shimmered like moonlight. The trial of peace between the Alliance and the remaining Zevan rebels had begun, Everyone watched her closely, pretending not to tremble, except Ryan, standing behind her as always, arms crossed, eyes scanning every shadow. He didn't trust the peace. And he was right. It happened fast. The ambassador from the Rugzari clan raised his glass during the speech, and something sharp glinted inside it. Too sharp, too fast. Ryan's instincts flared. His hand dropped to his hip. No weapon. He wasn't allowed to carry one near royalty. Then he saw it. A thin projectile launched from the ambassador's sleeve, quiet as breath, headed straight for the princess's spine. He didn't think. He moved, just as Virel shifted. Her weight, the needle struck, not her, but the human who stepped between. Ryan jerked as the metal spike pierced his side, right under the ribs. He didn't cry out. He just grunted, dropped to one knee, and stayed upright. Blood bloomed across his side. The guards panicked. Virel turned sharply, eyes wide. Ryan? He gave a crooked smile, knew this job had perks. Then collapsed. Chaos exploded. Guards rushed forward, weapons raised. The Rugzari ambassador was tackled to the ground. A hidden injector was found in his sleeve. He screamed about honor and betrayal, but no one listened. Virel didn't move. She knelt beside Ryan, touched his chest, his face, his side. His skin was growing cold, breath short and shaky. And then something happened that none had ever seen. The cursed princess began to panic. "No," she whispered. "No, not you." She pressed her hands to his wound, golden cuffs heating. Up, glowing, cracking. The seal was breaking. The ancient bonds forged by her people to suppress her power began to split. Sparks hissed. Her hair rose with static. Light bled from her fingertips. Ryan groaned, eyes fluttering. Hey, I'm not dying," he murmured. But she wasn't listening. She poured the energy into him, raw, glowing pulses that wrapped around his chest, sealing the wound, forcing the poison out. Guards backed away, stunned. Even the ministers stared, unable to speak, because the cursed one, the feared one, was crying. Not with rage, with fear. Moments later, the light faded. Ryan gasped and coughed, then blinked at her, confused. "You healed me?" he rasped. She stared at him, trembling, eyes red and jaw tight. "You idiot," she whispered. "Why did you do that?" He smiled again, weaker now. "Because you were worth the pain." She looked away quickly, wiping her cheek. "Stop talking," she said. "You're not allowed to die, remember?" "Got it, princess," he breathed. "No dying without permission." The council didn't speak for nearly an hour. Not one dared to challenge her after that. The ambassador was taken away. Silent now, his clan stripped of its rights. But none of that mattered to Virel, because she had broken the one rule she swore never to touch again. Her power. She used it to save a human. Not for war, not for revenge, for one foolish, fearless man who stood between her and death without blinking. Later that night, as the lights dimmed across the palace, she sat beside him in the medic chamber, watching him sleep. The healers had done their work, but it was her power that sealed the wound. Her touch that rewrote his fate. He had given her a choice she didn't think she deserved. And now, she couldn't walk away, not anymore. Just as she was about to leave his side, he stirred again, eyes half open, voice barely a whisper. "Princess, why are you still here?" She leaned in quietly. "Because I don't want to lose the only person who didn't step back." And then, for the first time, she smiled without hiding it. The wound had healed. But peace had not. By morning, news of the princess's powers spreading through the council chamber, and of the human who touched her, reached every corner of the palace. The whispers were sharper this time. Not just fear. Anger. Disgust. The royal advisors called an emergency tribunal. Ryan was arrested at dawn, dragged from the medical chamber without explanation. No weapons, no voice. Just a quiet, steady look toward the door she had vanished behind. Princess Virel had not been informed, and that was their first mistake. The court was packed. Every minister, Noble and alien commander sat high in judgment. Guards stood with charged staffs, the electric hum filling the silent chamber. Ryan stood at the center, wrists locked behind him, still injured, still pale, but still standing. One of the elders stepped forward, his voice sharp. "Human, you are charged with a crime that cannot be ignored. You laid hands upon the sacred bloodline of the Zevan Empire. You violated the ancient separation between protector and royalty." Ryan didn't speak. Another counselor added, "We have footage. You placed your hands on her in the healing chamber, skin to skin." Murmurs of outrage filled the room. One shouted, "You used her weakness." Another growled, "You infected her with your filth." But Ryan simply raised his eyes. "I saved her life," he said quietly. "Not your place," a judge snapped. "She is a princess, cursed or not. Your touch is death to tradition." A new voice echoed across the room. "Then your traditions deserve to die." The crowd turned, eyes wide. She was standing at the top of the marble steps. Princess Virel. No chains, no cuffs, no crown, just fire in her eyes. She walked down slowly, each step like thunder. When she reached the bottom, she walked past the guards, past the judges, and stopped right in front of Ryan. Then turned to face them all. "If touching me is a crime," she said, voice steady, "then your system is already broken." A counselor stood. "Your Highness, this man violated the code of purity." "Our laws, your laws made me a prisoner," she interrupted. "Your laws called me cursed. I was thrown into exile, beaten, branded, for surviving something I never asked for." She looked down at Ryan, then back at the crowd. "And he is the only one who didn't run." Gasps rippled across the court. "You forget your place," the elder shouted. "You defend a human over your own blood?" "Yes," she said. "Because he defended me, without asking for anything in return." "Then you leave us no choice," a general said coldly. "He will be executed at dusk. The old laws demand it." Virel stepped forward, and something strange happened. The ground beneath her feet cracked. Her golden cuffs shattered into dust. A wave of heat swept through the chamber, and her silver-blue eyes blazed with light. "You will not touch him," she said. "If you want him dead, you'll have to go through me." Guards raised their weapons. Power surged around her like a living storm, and no one moved. Ryan spoke softly. "Princess." She turned. "You should run," he whispered. "This isn't worth it." Her voice broke for the first time. "But you were." She faced the crowd again. "I will not let the only honest soul in this room be silenced to keep your lies alive. Stand down." The commander roared. "I've stood down my whole life," she said, stepping between Ryan and the council. "Not anymore." For the first time in centuries, the royal floor of the Galactic Council saw something it had forgotten: a royal daughter defying the blood code. Not for war, not for vengeance, but for a human, for someone who made her feel less like a weapon and more like a person. The chamber froze as one judge whispered into his cum. Moments later, a cold robotic voice echoed from the ceiling. "By order of High Galactic Command, Princess Virel is hereby stripped of royal status. Silence. Effective immediately. She is now marked as a civilian." Ryan looked at her in shock. She smiled, softly. "Then I guess we're equal now." And the galaxy took a sharp breath. The stars looked nothing like she imagined. Virel had stood in palace towers, looked through crystal ceilings, studied star maps carved from light. But this was different. This was real. 100,000 lights stretched across the black, blinking and burning like tiny gods. She stood near the front window of a stolen diplomatic shuttle, barefoot on cold steel, arms wrapped around herself. For the first time in her life, there were no guards, no chains, no watching eyes, only silence. And Ryan. They had escaped the palace barely an hour ago. One moment, The council had declared her stripped of royal blood. The next, Rian had grabbed her hand and whispered, "Come with me, now." No plan, no allies. No destination. Just urgency and one stolen access code. They'd sprinted through servant tunnels, dodged patrols, and burst into the launch bay just as alarms began to howl. Rian had hot-wired the closest diplomatic ship, designed for comfort. Not speed, but it would have to do. Now, they were drifting beyond the palace moons. Quiet, invisible, free. For now, Rian entered the cockpit, wiping grease from his hands. "Hyperdrive stable," he said, sliding into the pilot seat. "We'll jump again once the fuel cell cools." She didn't answer. He glanced at her reflection in the glass. She hadn't moved since launch. First time in open space? He asked. She nodded slowly. He got up, walked toward her, then stood next to her. Not close enough to touch, just enough to share the view. "You all right?" She spoke softly. "I don't know what I am anymore. No title, no empire." She added, "Nothing left." Rian looked out at the stars with her. "You've got this," he said. "This?" She asked, confused. He gestured to the wide-open galaxy. "This is more than most people ever get." She was quiet again, then asked, "What if I don't know who I am without the chains?" Rian turned to her, serious now. "Then maybe you're finally free enough to find out." Later that night, they sat on the ship's observation deck, a circular glass dome that showed the universe above. Rian had opened a ration kit, shared it without ceremony. She barely ate, more curious than hungry. "Human food is dry," she muttered, chewing slowly. "It's survival food," he grinned. "We'll find something better next jump." She looked around. "No one watching," she whispered. "No one chasing, yet," he added. "Yet," she repeated, and for the first time in days, smiled. It wasn't forced. It wasn't practiced. It was small, but real. She leaned back, arms behind her, eyes on the stars. "You know," she said quietly, "when I was young, I used to imagine this. Not courtrooms, not ceremonies, just this. The stars?" Rian asked. "No," she said, glancing at him. Silence. Rian lay back beside her on the cold floor, eyes closed. They didn't speak for a long while. There was no need. She was no longer a princess, no longer a weapon, no longer anything defined by others. She was just Virel. And beside her, the one person who had always seen her that way. But freedom never lasts forever. The ship's system beeped. An alert glowed red. "Tracking." "Signal," Rian muttered, sitting up fast. "They found us?" she asked. He checked the console. Short-range ping. Someone's close. "A scout." She stood, face calm. "Then we keep running." Rian smiled, impressed. "No panic?" She met his eyes. "I've been hunted before, but never with someone who looks at me like I matter." He stared at her, longer than he meant to. "You do," he said. As they prepared for the next hyperjump, Virel touched the glass window one last time, then turned to him. "If we don't make it," she whispered, "promise me something. Anything. Don't ever step back." He reached for the console and gently took her hand instead. "Never." And just like that, the stars vanished into streaks, and they jumped into darkness together. The stars weren't peaceful anymore. They burned like warning lights, each one a reminder that someone, somewhere was tracking them. The small stolen shuttle drifted through the black, silent and dim, its fuel running low, its shields barely holding. And somewhere in the distance, a hunter ship closed in. Rian worked quietly at the engine panel, sparks flashing against his arms. His jacket lay folded nearby, bloodstained from the wound that hadn't fully healed. Still, he kept going, fixing wires, sealing cracks, checking fuel cells. He didn't say much anymore, because every time he looked at Virel, she was staring out the window, her shoulders tense, her eyes unblinking. She hadn't slept in 2 days. She said she was fine. She WSN single quotes it. She had seen the message hours ago. A bounty signal, playing on every encrypted wave. A direct order from the High Galactic Command, dead or captured, the traitor princess and the human must be found. All rights revoked, all rewards authorized, no mercy. Her picture flashed alongside Ryan's, and when she looked at his face on the screen, bloodied, unshaven, tired, she felt something shift inside her chest. This wasn't just about her anymore. This was them. That night, she sat beside him as he calibrated the nav system. He offered her the pilot's seat. She didn't take it. Instead, she knelt beside him and said, "I was trained to destroy empires, and now I can't even protect one man." Ryan looked at her. "You already did," he said softly. She shook her head. "They'll send warships now. They'll come with weapons that even I can't stop." He smiled slightly. "Then it's a good thing I've got the galaxy's most dangerous woman on my side." She blinked, and for a second, just a second, she wished she was someone else, someone normal. Someone who could hold his hand without it meaning rebellion or ruin. The alert came at dawn. An incoming signal. No time to run. A Class V hunter ship burst through the nearby nebula, black hull, red streaks, fast, silent, deadly. And heading straight for them, Ryan jumped into the pilot's seat. "Strap in," he called out, but Virel didn't move. She was walking toward the airlock. "Wait, what are you doing?" He shouted. She didn't answer. He followed, stumbling as the ship shook. "Virel, stop!" She turned slowly. Her eyes were calm, steady. "I know this ship," she said. "It's not here to capture. It's here to erase us." "Then we run," he snapped. "There's nowhere left to run," she said. "Not without being hunted again. Not without one of us dying." Then she reached for the wall panel and pulled open a hidden compartment he didn't know existed. Inside, her old armor gleamed, silver with deep violet trim, forged from Zevan war metal, illegal and ancient. Ryan's breath caught. "I thought you burned that." "I lied," she said. She stepped inside the suit. As it sealed around her body, the cuffs that once bound her were replaced by gauntlets that pulsed with quiet rage. Her voice dropped. "If they want a monster," she said, "then I'll show them one." The next minutes were chaos. The hunter ship opened fire. Ryan swerved hard, but the blast ripped off their rear thrusters. He gripped the controls, heart pounding. Then he heard the airlock cycle open and saw her silhouette rise into the void. Virel launched herself from the ship, flying, spinning, wrapped in energy like living fire. The hunter vessel turned its cannons toward her. And she didn't slow down. They watched her burn across the stars, single figure against a ship 20 times her size. She landed on the hull, ripped through the armor with bare hands, tore into the core like a meteor crashing into bone. The hunter ship screamed, metal twisting, lights flashing, shields cracking. And then, silence. She floated there for a second, surrounded by fire and silence. And then drifted back toward the shuttle, slow, weak, falling. Ryan caught her at the airlock. Her armor cracked and flickering, her breath shallow. She collapsed in his arms, voice barely a whisper. "You're safe now." He held her close. "No," he said, voice shaking. "We are." As the fire behind them faded and stars returned to stillness, the ship's eye spoke for the first time in hours. "Alert! Multiple ships inbound. Unidentified fleet. Unknown allegiance." Virel opened her eyes. "What now?" she asked. Ryan helped her sit up, then smiled, the same smile he gave her the first day they met. "Now we find out who else dares to stand beside you." She didn't sleep the night before they landed. Virel sat alone by the observation window, staring into the empty dark, stars flickering like silent judges. The message kept replaying in her mind. "Come home, daughter of Ziva. The throne has been rebuilt. Your power is no longer a threat. Your name will be restored. All will be forgiven if you walk forward alone." Alone, their ship touched down on a glass runway that shimmered under the twin suns. At the far end, a crowd waited. Royal guards in black and gold, elders from the high bloodline. Flags of surrender turned back to banners of welcome. And in the center, a throne carved from living crystal, pulsing with soft light. She stood in the open doorway of the shuttle, wind pushing against her cloak. Rian stood behind her, saying nothing. She could feel him breathing. That was all she needed. "You don't have to go," he said quietly. She didn't turn. "I do," she said. "But not for them." She walked the path alone, head high, armor gleaming in the morning light. Her steps didn't shake. Her expression didn't waver, but her heart did. Every person in the crowd had once called her cursed, had whispered behind veils, bowed with fake smiles, then voted for her exile. Now they were all watching, waiting for her to kneel, to accept their forgiveness, to return as if nothing had been broken. A noble stepped forward. "Princess Varel," he said, "the past is gone. We offer you your name again. The throne is yours." She stared at the throne. It looked beautiful. It looked dead. Then another voice rose, sharp and rehearsed. "But the human must go. He has no blood, no name, no place." Murmurs of agreement spread through the crowd. "The throne demands legacy," someone added. "Not scandal." Another elder stepped forward. "If you wish to rule, you must let go of the one who doesn't belong." Silence. Varel slowly raised her eyes and smiled. Not kindly, not cruelly, just truthfully. She turned around and walked away from the throne. Gasps rippled across the square. Some stepped back. Others shouted, "What are you doing? You're giving up everything." She didn't answer them. She just walked back to Ryan, standing at the base of the landing ramp, watching her with nothing in his hands, nothing in his eyes but steady, silent support. She stood in front of him, took his hand, and faced the crowd. "If my blood is pure," she said, voice calm, "then why do you fear my choice?" No one answered. "If my throne is strong," she continued, "then why does it fall at the touch of a human?" Still silence. "Because this isn't about blood. It never was. It's about control." She stepped forward. "And I'm done being controlled." The crystal throne behind her cracked, a hairline fracture down the center. Then another. A wave of energy pulsed through the stone. Light burst like lightning. And in front of everyone, the throne shattered into shards of glass. And memory. A symbol of what she had just broken and what she had just chosen. Later, on the ship, Ryan leaned against the wall, arms folded. As the engines warmed, "You could have had it all," he said. She walked past him, unbothered. "I do have it all," she replied. He raised an eyebrow. She turned and looked at him, seriously. "This time, you gave me something none of them ever offered." "What's that?" She smiled. "A choice." History would write that the last daughter of Ziva turned her back on an empire for a man with no crown. But the truth would live in a quiet moment, on a ship without flags, where a woman once seen as a weapon chose a human's hand over a galaxy's throne. And the stars, for the first time, didn't look so lonely.